so you know the drill. It is almost 7 and it's a Friday. It's Friday the 30th of August. How is it almost September already? But yeah, it's 7. I'm literally just about to go off for my walk. I didn't have cardio today, I did cardio yesterday. I actually have a double rest across these past couple of days just to fall back in line with Mark and Cuba. So it's just a day of work, and I think that we've got something planned this afternoon that we're going to go to this like wildlife park sort of thing. It's called the Butterfly House. So I'm hoping they actually have one of those little houses with the butterflies that you get to go into. That would be honestly unreal, but I just wanted to vlog the next couple of days just because we've got a little bit more going on. But as per usual, the routine stays much the same. I was up 5:30, get everything ready, got my coffee, got my first meal ready, and obviously I haven't had that yet. Usually I will fast until I have done my walk and a little bit of work in the morning. So because I didn't do cardio today, I've literally just been adjusting some plans for clients and getting back to some messages. I still have a few to do, which I'll do out on the walk. But yeah, like I checked in yesterday, and I will do a little bit of physique updates this week, just to take you through obviously the changes since we started dieting, because I am 5 weeks in now, so we are technically like at the halfway point. I have hit a new low this morning, which is wicked. I had my period last week, so my weight actually held and went up a little bit actually all of last week. So that's always going to be the case if you are a lady, and often that is going to see your weight trend up a touch, but we can't let that get to us too much, otherwise it will just drive you insane. We're actually pretty happy with the visuals from yesterday, and they're the first time I've actually looked at my pictures and been like, you know what? It's coming in a little bit now. I'm starting to see a bit more of the shape that I know I have. We're currently 8 kilos down, I think. I started off at close to 77 kilos, and now I am 68.3 as of today. So that's pretty good going. Like, that's a solid amount of body fat loss, to be honest. And I do feel a lot better for it. I don't think that anyone particularly enjoys like the end of like a push-up really, especially when you do have to push it a bit more, but it's something that has allowed me to make a good bit of progress. It just means that obviously I have to do a bit more work coming down again. But anyway, I digress. We're gonna head off out the walk. I need to get back to my clients and then we'll start the day. Guys, what the fuck? Like, this is the first time I've been out in the morning and can actually see like my breath. Like, winter is around the corner. Honestly, I'm so gutted. I'm also just about to come up to this hedge over there that is full of wasps, and I literally have to stand there and wait for all the cars to go past. Luckily it's early in the morning, so there are no cars, but I usually have to stand there and wait for all the cars to go past before I can pass the hedge. It's fucking ridiculous, but I cannot stand them. Like, honestly, if there's just something that shouldn't exist, it's a wasp and mosquitoes. They're two things that definitely should just not exist. Look at this though, how beautiful. This morning walk is just the one. I honestly don't know how people wouldn't want to get out on a walk in the morning. Don't get me wrong, when it's absolutely pissing it down, I get it, I really do. But when it's like this, it's like, why not make the most of it? I think the mornings are such a valuable time for you to go and be getting things done. Like, it just sets you up so well for the day. You get like that, you know, brightness, sunlight in your eyes to regulate that circadian rhythm. What more would you want? What more could you want? So obviously, whenever I have whey, unless it's in the creamies that we have last thing, I always make it into a paste. Now the trick to the perfect whey paste is not to add much water at all, and literally just do it almost like drop by drop. So you probably don't want to be using like one of them big water bottles for this really, just because you'll probably end up pouring too much in. But if you're going to weigh it, like weigh the water to make the perfect consistency, then generally it's going to be like 30 grams of whey, you probably want like 30 grams of water. If anything, actually I'll probably go a little bit below that. As a bit of a guideline. I mean, I eyeball it out because I'm just a whey paste connoisseur by now, but the trick is literally just to add it in drop by drop and then mix it and then see if you need to add a little bit more. But there is nothing more tragic than putting more, like too much water into your whey paste because it would just basically go like so runny, and you might as well just like drink it by that point. So just be mindful. This here is the consistency that I like, so super thick. And you can just drizzle it over your oats, cream of rice, whatever you want, protein pancakes, French toast. The world is your oyster when you have the perfect whey paste. So me and Mark have literally just got to the butterfly house. We've just watched a little demo with like the parrots and the owls. And now we're just having a look at all the animals.
I'm just so confused the one there.
Oh, he's just chilling.
One. Let's go here. He looks like he has little short legs. Look at it up there.
Like oh, he's like a pygmy goat.
It's like he has half legs.
Half legs?
He's looking at it.
It's just so amazing. Oh, I feel you, girl. Have you ever seen socks so bright in your life? So I'm actually just gonna go and get a few steps in because I'm a little bit behind on the day, a bit more behind than I usually am, just because I'm usually practically wrapped up with my steps at like 3, before 3, and then obviously I just have a few more to get in during the day. But because today we went out and about, and obviously that does rack up a few steps, it does mean that I have to come out and do a few extra steps a little bit later on in the day than what I usually would, but that's fine. Like, we have to get them done anyway. But something that I think this kind of highlights is, one second. One thing that I think this highlights is just the value of having a good routine. I've always found that you fall back on your routine so much. Like when there are things that are difficult tasks, things that you don't want to do, if you set a routine to put these difficult things like into your day and they have a place in your day, then you don't have to and ah about, oh, like, you know, will I do it, will I not do it? It's like, right, this is the time of day that I do this every single day. You build a habit of it, and it's like, it just becomes the time that you do that thing. So it makes it a lot easier. Like today, for example, I find it so much harder to get out and do my steps, even though I've only got like maybe like 1.5, 2,000 left to do, than I would like when it's my normal time to do my steps like earlier in the day, because it's just like, right, it's step time, I literally just get up and I go out. Whereas like there, I'm just there like, well, it's almost like, you know, the back end of the day, and like I don't really want to go out. And believe me, like everyone has times when they're not really motivated to do things, and we just haven't, we can't rely on that. So the best thing you can do is build a solid routine and then work in the difficult things in your day, probably earlier on the day more than anything, because if you get those things done earlier on the day, you're going to feel accomplished, you're going to feel ahead, and then you don't have to worry about them towards the back in the day, when generally like you're making so many more decisions, you have decision fatigue towards the back end of the day, and it's much more likely that you'll choose not to do something at the end of the day than if you just choose and make sure you do it at the beginning of the day, because it will make you feel like you've kind of got it out of the way and you can actually move forward without that dragging you down all day. Obviously this takes forever to start sometimes as well. It scares the shit out of me every time. Hopefully you can hear me okay, but Mark actually recently got this treadmill, which is now in our garage, because we now have a garage, which is incredible. Extra storage spaces to keep the clutter at bay. Tidy house, tidy mind, all of that. But we popped the treadmill into the garage, and now we basically just use this whenever we need to kind of get out for some steps, especially when it's kind of like midday or so, like if we just need a few more to get. Obviously we always try and keep our morning walk outside. I don't mind if it's drizzling a little bit. Obviously it was pissing down, we do have the option to use this, but it is very, very handy. Obviously I already have the trackpad. Obviously Mark can't use the trackpad because he's like probably the best part of like 40-50 kilos over the weight limit or something. That is an absolute no-go. Means that if, for example, I push for time in the morning, I literally just come on here and do my cardio in the morning, because it means that I save myself a 50-minute commute just to the gym, just to do 20 minutes of cardio and come back. So I'll just put this on like an incline walk and just power walk for like 20 minutes. I put it on like a 6, and then the speed is like 3.5, so I'm like proper powering up the hill, and just get my heart rate up. So probably not quite as much as Stairmaster, but on the days that I'm really pushed for time, like I've got check-ins in a busy day, then it's definitely a good option for me. Hey guys, so I just wanted to talk through a little bit of the process so far, seeing as we are practically at the halfway point of the diet. So I just wanted to go through my starting pictures and obviously my pictures from my previous check-in, and also talk you through my blood work as well that I had done recently, because I thought that that might be a little bit more insightful and interesting, because obviously it is quite different from my blood work, my full set of bloods that I had the first time post-show, I suppose. So with that being said, this here is the current transformation, you could call it, between my start point when I began dieting about like 5.5 weeks ago to this week. So across that period of time, I've managed to pull off about 8 kilos. So that's a significant amount of body weight. And I am really happy with that progress, because obviously if you average that out in terms of weekly loss, that is over 1 kilo a week. Obviously at the beginning, usually when food is quite high and you are like really accumulating a lot of inflammation, like from training in your gut as well, just from the volume being high, then a lot of that drop will be off the back of the first week or so, which I did see a massive drop. I think I maybe pulled off 3 kilos across like the first week, so that was a significant drop from that water and that gut inflammation. But since then things have been moving really nicely. So obviously you can see the difference in both my front shots. So here you can see that my waist is a lot tighter now. I've also started to fix the rotation in my upper body here too, because that's something on posing on this side that I really did struggle with before. I just could not get my arm around, but I've just adjusted my hand positioning here, and now I've been able to kind of get to a point where I'm able to display my upper body a little bit better. Again, it's a work in progress on this side, and also the leaner you are, the easier it generally is to pose, so always keep that in mind as well. But I do feel like this side is actually looking like the better side for me at the moment. Generally, like when I've competed all of last season, I posed on the other side, which obviously both sides will have like strengths and weaknesses. Generally, sometimes someone will have a very obvious good side, but this is the definitely better side when it comes to my glute projection. The other side, and also my delt is better on this side as well. On the other side, I've just had more of a taper. My waist is smaller on the other side. So this is where like this is kind of where we have to continue to adjust as time goes on. As I get leaner, as my physique develops, I will always be manipulating things if I need to, depending on like what side looks better, what side starts to look worse, because things can change as your physique starts to change. So obviously you can see that overall I'm a much smaller body. I wouldn't say there's a whole lot more kind of definition popping through as per se. Definitely a little bit more when you actually see me in person when I'm training that I'm noticing, but obviously my face is a lot slimmer now, which is lovely, because I do get like some really chubby cheeks in the off season. But I think that right now it's just a matter of just continuing to chip away. Like I'm just a smaller human, rather than thinking, okay, right, all this definition is coming through, because I'm not lean enough to warrant seeing that yet. But I'm certainly feeling a lot more confident just with the fact that body fat is a lot lower, and I just feel generally in myself a lot better. So what I meant earlier by like, you know, one side versus the other, this is the side that I posed on the majority, like the whole of my last competition season for the 4 shows that I did. Now obviously you can see that my waist does come in a lot. I'm still, believe it or not, holding a lot of body fat on my waist. My waist will literally be non-existent when I compete, but I have still managed to develop a good amount of glute across this particular shot, across this off season, which is wicked. That's exactly what I needed. But again, we're never really going to see the full extent of that until I'm like down. So we don't really have an accurate picture of that quite yet. But in comparison to, you know, when I started my diet, you can see that my waist has actually come in a lot. My proportions have come through a lot more. Including like my upper body is just it's holding less body fat now. You can see a bit more shape come through. So I am really happy with the way that that's progressing. I know that that would only get better, which is why often it ends up being the better side, even though now it's the worst side. But now that I have a bit more muscle and I've sorted the rotation on this side, I almost feel like, oh, could this be the better side? Because my waist, actually, given that my glute is bigger here and I now can rotate my upper body around more, obviously the illusion is then of that like hourglass shape that my waist is smaller, even though technically it is bigger on this side. But that's going to be exciting just to continue to play around with that. In the back shot as well, you can see that obviously I'm a good bit leaner across the back, just mainly my glutes and my lower body, even though again nothing significant in terms of like any lines or anything coming through, but overall the picture overall is a lot better. Like you can see that my upper body now is come down a lot. Like I do hold a good bit of body fat, like generally from head to toe. Like I'm not particularly like lower body dominant when it comes to where I hold my body fat, but there's definitely a lot less in my lower back and glutes, and just overall, like, even though here technically I'm bursting full, and obviously now I'm obviously going to be a bit more on the flatter side because I have been in a deficit for quite some time and I've pulled off a good bit of body weight. Like, it's still, you know, the look is still good, like it's still a full look, which I'm really happy with. I didn't actually take this particular shot from when I started, but believe me, I think the reason why I didn't take it was just because it was not a very good shot at all when I was like peak off season. But now my shape has started to come through a bit more, like it's something that I definitely will continue to track a bit better. But this is actually one of my strongest shots, even though it's not a mandatory in when you actually compete. It's in my individual, I believe it's one of my strongest shots, like when I'm lean, just because of my structure. That is looking really good in terms of the shape for where I currently am. Like, this is definitely the best my body composition has ever been at this body weight. And this is why body weight can sometimes be so irrelevant, because one look at a weight can be totally different to another look at the same weight in two different parts of your journey, depending on, you know, the progression in between, like the work you've put in. And sometimes you can't hold on to a set body weight, because if you hold on to a set body weight, it is always going to hold you back. I know as a woman it's quite difficult to see body weight push up. I totally appreciate and understand that, but sometimes, like, it's what you need to see to really see the progression that you want to see in the long run, and not leave progression on the table if you're really serious about pushing body weight. Not to say that you have to get super heavy at all, but you do need to see body weight come up if you do want to optimize muscle gain at the same time. So obviously that's the changes in the progress picture so far. Looking at the past kind of few weeks of data, just based off of like scale weights, it's obviously you know that I'm pretty on it when it comes to my logging, especially when it just comes to tracking data. But here, like, you can see that my week last week was very sticky. So even though I've hit some new lows this week, which is wicked, everything's back moving again. Last week would have easily made anyone feel demotivated, because obviously weight actually came up a little bit and then it kind of held, and that was just down to the fact that in the few days leading up to my period arriving, I always find that scale weight will come up and I'll always feel a little bit more watery and like kind of puffy in myself, and that is totally normal as a female. Like, you will always generally experience that when you are approaching your cycle every single month. Like, that is very, very typical. So don't let that almost deter you from continuing to put the work in, because that's where people get put off, and then they're just like, oh, this isn't working, and then they go and, you know, eat off plan, or they stop doing the things that they need to do. But you just have to be patient and just see that through, because you can see that by the time my period arrived, my weight actually dropped, and then it kind of held, and then come day 3 I had a good few drops across the next 4 days. So you always have to think that that's very, very likely if you just continue to be consistent and not let that get to you, because you will experience these more sticky weeks. Obviously, prior to that, I'm pulling off like a good amount of body fat each week. I've only really had like one adjustment made, I believe, like across the period of time that I've been dieting. And when I started initially, like, I saw that big drop off the back of like really still pretty high food. So I was pretty happy with that, to be honest. And my food is not low now. It's still pretty decent. It's somewhere between like 1,800 calories to 2,500, depending on whether I'm on a rest day or a training day, because I have my nutrition split into 3 days: rest, upper and legs. So, you know, my average is still in a really good spot. It's probably about like 2,200, 2,300 or so, which is not bad for someone my size. But obviously, the more muscle you gain, the harder you train, the more likely you're going to be able to diet on higher food. And that's not always the case, but a lot of the time it is. Now, when it comes to blood work, these are actually, like, I was really happy with this blood work. The last time I had a full panel done was a few months after, like, I think it was a handful of 4 months after I actually finished prep, because I wanted some time just to get my body back into a place where I'd gain some body fat before I got blood work done, because obviously blood work is never going to be the best straight after prep. And 4 months post show, I think you might remember me talk about this before, but it still was not very good. So given that that was the last time I had a full set done, and we've made a couple of little adjustments since then, just to improve my blood work, I am in a much better place now. The only real things that were off were MPV, albumin, and CK, which albumin, like, you know, it is a little bit of inflammation. That's not going to be a big deal. I train really hard. I train often. That's always going to be there in the background. CK is always going to be elevated if you are someone who trains hard as well. So with exercise, like, that generally is going to be higher. MPV is like barely out of shot, so that's something we don't stress about. All the rest of the markers are very, very good. Obviously, everything is practically in range, which is wicked. Testosterone is something that we always will look at, and testosterone is sat just above 1, which is perfect, because when I actually finished my competitive season and I was 4 months post show, my test was like 0.1 3 or something like that, so it was not very good at all. So given that since I've been pushing food up, my body weight has come up, my body fat has come up, that's put my body in a much better position to be more healthy, I suppose, like, because my body can't really stay super lean, like it just doesn't like to be super lean, like it does affect my hormonal profile, and I'm not my healthiest when I'm trying to stay lean. So the fact that body weight has come up, and that's allowed me to kind of get my blood work into a much better spot, which is exactly why I did actually push my body weight up a little bit quicker towards after I had the blood work done, just to make sure that I could speed that process up or get my body in a position where it was healthy. A healthy body is going to progress the quickest, so that's just something to keep in mind as well. Now, so this is practically exactly where we want to be. We don't really need to be making any more adjustments to get that higher, and the fact that, you know, I'm still feeling really good, like in this diet, is a really positive sign as well, because obviously this was taken at the halfway point. Now the only thing that was kind of more off was, I suppose, like thyroid, but that's just because I'm dieting. I'm using exogenous like thyroid, make sure that the thyroid stays in a really good place, so we just use that as almost like a replacement therapy dosage, and that just keeps me consistent like across the whole year basically. So everything else was practically spot on. Obviously vitamin D was on the higher side, but like that's absolutely fine. I really think that this is I obviously know as well exactly when this blood work was taken within my cycle, so looking at the estradiol, progesterone, like all of that looks to be like where it needs to be, which is perfect. So overall, I'm really happy with that blood work. It's definitely kind of allowed me to breathe a breath of fresh air, because I did not enjoy seeing the fact that my blood work was not good, like post-show, like last year. So the fact that we're in a place now where my body is on paper like healthy again is amazing, and that means that I know that I'm going to be able to make the most progress. I'm going to be my healthiest, and my body is like that matters a lot to me, as my overall health does matter a lot to me, and it's something that I do want to have longevity within this. So it's something that I will continue to check every few months, just to make sure that we are continuing to stay in a really good spot with it, and I suppose what we could say for progression in an optimal spot for that as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and of course any other questions, please don't hesitate to drop me a message, and I will see you in the next one.